Welcome back to the Kaspa Silver YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to answer the question whether or not Kaspa being proof of work is bad for the environment. This is probably one of the most common things I see of people trying to critique Kaspa, saying that since it's proof of work, it's probably going to struggle in the future since all companies and all institutions are looking into this ESG narrative. So before we get into more details about that, let's just first explain what ESG is. ESG stands for Environmental, Social, and Governance, otherwise known as ESG, is a framework used to assess an organization's business practices and performance on various sustainability and ethical issues. It also provides a way to measure business risk and opportunities in those areas. In capital markets, some investors use ESG criteria to evaluate companies and help determine their investment plans, a practice known as ESG investing. And if we're looking at the three pillars of ESG, you see that you have environmental, social, and governance. And Bitcoin, since it's not really a company or anything like that, and if we're looking at something like Kaspa as well, it's the same concept. Really, the only thing that these fall into is the category of environmental. And this is because of proof of work mining. A lot of people think that the emissions from proof of work mining and the energy usage is not good for the environment. And this could be an argument why these types of projects will just not be successful in the long term because they're proof of work. But this is just not a good narrative and it doesn't hold any water. And basically all we got to do to prove that is just look at the facts. ESG investing was originally pioneered by the CEO of BlackRock, which is Larry Fink. He's the guy that kind of started getting this going and popularized about ESG investing, making sure businesses are meeting their criteria in their fight against climate change or in the fight of equity and all that kind of stuff. But if we're looking at the facts, we see that BlackRock, and the CEO is Larry Fink, BlackRock recently wanted to file an spot ETF for Bitcoin. So clearly, this is saying something different about this whole ESG narrative that is going to kill Bitcoin. And I'm going to show you guys how this is going to connect to Kaspa as well at the end. But let's just look at Bitcoin because this is the major player that is actually proving ESG narrative doesn't hold any water right now. So BlackRock, which is one of the biggest asset managers in the whole entire world, is wanting to file for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Not only that, a ton of other institutions like Fidelity and other brokerages are trying to do the same. We can also see here that the BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, says he's officially retiring ESG as an investing term. And then if you look up on Google, Larry Fink pro ESG, you will just find a lot of articles saying Larry Fink ashamed to be a part of the ESG political debate. Larry Fink takes on ESG backlash. BlackRock's Larry Fink is ashamed of the ESG debate. BlackRock's Fink, why I won't say ESG anymore. BlackRock Larry Fink is focusing on goals other than ESG. So Larry Fink kind of pioneered the idea of ESG, but sadly the political tensions of it took it another route where Larry Fink's ideas about it was not where the political left ideas about it were on, and it basically became a weaponized kind of term for the political parties. Moving forward, a Twitter user by the name of CM Kid, he is someone who likes to talk a lot about Kaspa and really thinks it's a good investment for the long term and has a lot of good insights and thoughts about it, brought to my attention about the fact that a major company actually wrote a whole entire PDF article on Bitcoin and its environmental impacts, and basically said a lot of positive things, proving that Bitcoin really isn't as bad for the environment as the media tries to say it is in most instances. So the company that came out with this article is called KPMG. This company basically specializes in making sure other companies are able to thrive and grow in their business. They gather a ton of data and are just well versed in being able to make businesses grow. And they have partnerships with major companies like IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, and so on and so forth. So their article that came out was Bitcoin's role in the ESG imperative, an overview of the opportunities and creative approaches that deliver value and drive trust with key stakeholders. So the beginning of this article is basically going to just explain Bitcoin and mining and how this affects the environment. And if we look right here, environmental Bitcoin's impact today and role in reducing emissions, I want to read you guys this section here and then show you the conclusion of this whole entire article. So to begin, Bitcoin's environmental impact has been hotly debated for years, in particular, the energy consumption used to mine Bitcoin. Meanwhile, stakeholders, including consumers, regulators, investors, and more, are focused on driving toward net zero emissions. So what's the challenge and opportunity for the Bitcoin ecosystem? On the surface, Bitcoin does not emit direct emissions, also referred to as Scope 1 emissions, much like electric vehicles do not emit direct emissions. That's because the hardware used in mining ASICs runs off electricity. And just want to mention, ASICs actually allows Bitcoin and Kaspa and any other proof of work that uses ASICs to be a lot more energy efficient and using all the energy for its purpose. Note that in some instances, Bitcoin mining operations do produce Scope 1 emissions, such as those associated with repowering, underutilized generation assets, or with the use of waste gas, natural gas flared as part of oil and gas production activities. Like EVs, where its indirect emissions, referred to as Scope 2 emissions, come from and is the primary source of debate, is the energy used to produce the electricity. Bitcoin consumes approximately 110 terawatt hours of energy per year, roughly 0.55% of global electricity use, which is equivalent to the amount of energy required to run tumble dryers. One would have expected much more electricity use given the years of criticism Bitcoin has received due to its energy consumption. Infamously, a Newsweek article in 2017 published an article titled Bitcoin Mining on Track to Consume All of the World's Energy by 2020. However, the use of energy is not the primary issue, but rather the emissions associated with the production of that energy, such as those from burning of fossil fuels. For comparison purposes, it's helpful to compare the emissions associated with Bitcoin's operations with the emissions of a wide range of industry and services. And if we look at this chart here, get a load of where Bitcoin is sitting at when you're comparing to everything else. Everything else is much worse when you're looking at the emissions compared to Bitcoin. For recreational use, which is what Bitcoin fits in, it's only sitting at about a 67 here. And then everything else is much larger than Bitcoin. Even TVs, networks, and electronics, things we use every day, are producing way more emissions than Bitcoin itself. And then if we go all the way to the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and read the conclusion of this to kind of just show you guys what these people are thinking, which are bigger players in the space. It's a major company. They're partnered with major companies that you would think they care about the environment and ESG and all that kind of stuff. It says, in closing, Bitcoin appears to provide a number of benefits across an ESG framework. Throughout its short history, new and innovative ways of leveraging the network and its native asset continue to emerge, such as helping to stabilize energy grids, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and even assist with providing sustainable heat to commercial and residential properties. Time will tell what Bitcoin's role may look like in the transition to renewable energy and how it may serve as a financial tool to those in authoritative regimes or those experiencing significant inflation. So clearly, this is a very positive look on Bitcoin coming from a major company that works with other major companies that are supposed to be looking at the environment and bringing their emissions to net zero. So how does this relate to Kaspa? Well, Kaspa is actually even more energy efficient than Bitcoin. And we already see here that there's a positive light of the energy emissions for Bitcoin here. But what about Kaspa? Well, on Bitcoin, you should already know that it prints blocks through miners. And when these miners print blocks, it creates a chain that looks just like this. But there's an occurrence called orphan blocks, which happens when two miners mine a block at the same time, basically, and it creates a fork in the chain. And basically, it starts creating new blocks that are not part of the main chain, and eventually those will just get disregarded. Well, when those blocks are created that are not part of the main chain, mining was used and electricity was used and energy was used to create those blocks. But when you disregard them, that means you just had wasted mining energy usage. Now with Kaspa, Kaspa does not orphan blocks. It doesn't even do this. So that means every single block is used on the chain, creating a block DAG, because it looks like this and it's moving in a parallel line instead of just a straight line. And that means miners are using their miners to their full potential, and there's no wasted energy on creating blocks because every block is used to actually run the Kaspa network. Secondly, I want to show you a part of the article from How to Solve the Blockchain Trilemma of Block DAG and Nakamoto Consensus Friendship that was written by Nicholas, which is a Binance US listing researcher. And in this article, he actually described this energy issue a little bit. And if we're reading here, it says, some criticize proof of work's reliance on electricity as a possible security concern, not to mention a burden to the environment. This is a justified concern, but current research in optical proof of work, otherwise called OPOW, alleviates this concern. Optical proof of work is a paradigm shift to lower operational costs such as electricity, known as OPEX, to allocate more funds to capital expenses known as CAPEX. The desire to decrease operational costs reduces proof of work's environmental impact and provides better network security. This is because an OPEX heavy paradigm equates to miners burning the security budget by using it. Moreover, only countries with lower OPEX costs, such as electricity costs, can support proof of work infrastructure, thus severely increasing the barrier to entry. Being CAPEX heavy, on the other hand, means the miners' investments protect the system by locking them into the system without burning their investment with every new block mined. Moreover, a larger cache of specialized security hardware is maintained, increasing the barrier to attack. OPOW, therefore, utilizes optical ASICs, which use very little energy to run. Optical technology has been widely adopted for AI servers and is compatible with the hashing algorithm, the K-heavy hash, utilized by Ghost DAG and DAGNITE. So you could see that the hashing algorithm for Kaspa was even built to be able to handle better types of ASICs, which will allow the energy usage to not be as much, further decreasing the whole entire narrative that being proof of work is bad for the environment. So that alone just shows how Kaspa is innovating the original proof of work protocol, the Nakamoto consensus, by using its new Phantom Ghost DAG protocol, which allows it to actually save more energy than Bitcoin. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video and you found it very valuable. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, consider joining my Patreon. My Patreon gets you access to my private Discord, being able to chat with me 24/7. And not only that, you get free Kaspa giveaways every single week that I run on the Discord. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And as always, don't be average, be different.